A 20.51 of fiscal sustainability trillion naira budget and transition is proposed for expenditure by the federal government for its services in 2023 fiscal year. The budget, which is the last by the Buhari presidency, is designed to maintain fiscal viability, address critical issues of concern, and lay a solid foundation for the next administration. President Muhammadu Buhari presented the appropriations bill, reassuring the nation of his unshakable commitment to leaving a legacy of peaceful, prosperous, and secured Nigeria. While presenting the details, the President said the 2023 transition budget was designed to address critical issues and lay a solid foundation for the incoming administration. As it is now, a breakdown of the budget shows that 744.11 billion naira was earmarked for statutory transfers, 8.27 trillion naira for non-debt recurrent costs, 1.1 trillion naira for overhead costs, and 5.35 trillion naira for capital expenditure. The President said to expect the total fiscal operations of the federal government to result in a deficit of 10.78 trillion naira. The President explained that the budget deficit will be financed mainly through borrowings and that it would include new borrowings totaling 8.80 trillion naira, 206.18 billion naira from privatization proceeds, and 1.77 trillion naira drawdowns on bilateral and multilateral loans secured for specific development projects and programs. This is Nigeria Today, and our focus is on 2023 appropriation bill with two economists to chart the course for us as we analyze the budget. Honestly, at this point, I'm tired of calling figures. I'm Lydia Odijochi. We'll be back in a moment. Do stay with us. Joining me in the studio to discuss the 2023 appropriations bill is Dr. Emeka Okengo, senior economist and a family of the house, a part of the family.
A senior citizen of Nigeria.
He's also a former United Nations consultant. Now, glad to have you join us. And also in the studio is Yusha'u, also a familiar face, Yusha'u Aliyu, an economist and a friend of the house. Thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Okengo. It's called a budget of fiscal consolidation and transition, the last by this administration. Now, what do you make of it as a whole?
First, what is important that we establish as this is not an appropriation bill yet.
Okay.
It is a budget proposal. And until it goes through the rigors of the National Assembly, it hasn't become an act. Okay, so what it is we have now are budget proposals, or if you may, to want to put it in technical language, financial plans that you've couched in figures.
Okay.
Are needed for us to be able to put that, because what the President has put forward maybe from experience, would not be what the National Assembly might be presenting for him to pass. Now, having said that, beautiful, first and foremost, let's commend the President. I mean, he's consistently presented, his budgets, just like he promised he would. And like the Senate President also said, they also would want to pass this budget, on a good time. But I have two worries. Worry number one is, this is a government that should be, transiting into a new administration, okay, in the next maybe 8 months, as it were. And remember that we rolled over the 2022 budget. So the 2022 budget, if I get my facts right, is actually supposed to be running up till about March of 2023. Now, what I thought we could have done is to maybe, in view of what the President had said, present a supplementary budget to be able to support the 2022 budget that should terminate, okay, at March of 2022, and then have a 3-month transition budget that should bring in the new administration. Okay, so within that period, after elections, I should be waiting. The new administration, whoever they are, be it government in power, be it a new political party, would now have time, to be able to draw up on their own programs. Because the challenge, Lydia, is if perchance, okay, you have a new administration that has, and everybody is bringing their manifestos. And this, from what the other political parties are saying, government is talking about sustainability. One political party is talking about taking us from knowledge to production. Another one is taking us from where we are now as consumption to production. And I didn't see this budget, deal with it. That would be my opening. Okay.
All right, Yusha'u. Now, looking at the global and local fundamentals, how realistic is this budget?
The realistic aspect of the budget has to go based on what the president has highlighted. There is fiscal instability worldwide. Our fiscal instability, and we are now coming with a budget with fiscal sustainability. That is the first challenge the budget is going to face. Not only that, when you look at some, based on the presentation, about 82 paragraphs of presentation, which the president mostly highlighted some of his successes and some commendation, particularly to National Assembly, including the media. These are issues mostly of political in nature, looking at the fact that it is an ailing economy, and it is an economy that is being even projected to be at percentage at 17 or above 17%, which is still high. So when a projection is made in a budget and you are insisting of having fiscal sustainability, where there are a lot of uncertainties with the macroeconomic issues around the globe, it's a desperate budget, so to call.
Oh, okay. Now that the budget has been presented, do you see it impacting the economy in any way, as this week the Naira appreciated against the dollar?
If you are to look at the exchange rate, the first range you put before you look at the projection in 2022, when they pegged the dollar to be at 405, and still is pegged above 435. So when you look at this, there is still danger for Naira, because the precision is still coming, and the president has commended central bank so much, to the extent that he called most of his successes is attributed to the intervention of the CBN, whereas what is on the ground is that CBN has to do more to make sure that Naira is saved. Not only that, to make sure also there is stability in general price level, because the president highlighted in the same budget about food inflation, which is very serious to most of the household. And politically speaking, there is need to address food inflation, especially in a transitory process.
All right. Now, Doctor, what do you think were the determining factors of this budget?
Well, it's not what I think. I mean, what is listed as determining factors, first and foremost, is oil price, is oil production, which they have put at 1.69 billion barrels every day. I mean, this is us. As of the latest reports, we are not even doing up to 1 million. Okay, and I didn't see any mitigation measures, apart from the announcements that 4 kilometers of pipeline that has been in operation for 9 years, had been found, leading to Escravos, which is our biggest terminal. So it's, I didn't see those mitigation measures. And then when you now start talking about putting about 9 trillion, as it were, into your overhead costs and your recurrent, and then you're putting 5 trillion into your capital. And remember that you're saying that you are in a hurry to complete most of the projects that you've started. And also remembering that a lot of these projects are still hanging, as it were. If you remember the last time we had the conversation, we were thinking about, was the president asking for debt cancellation for Nigeria? I don't think he was, though. If he was, then on what basis are we going to be carrying cabs and then going to be borrowing? Because remember, there are 2 borrowings there. Fresh borrowings of about 8 billion, and then drawdowns of about 1.7 trillion, sorry. So if you are going to be drawing all that money down, and then you are going to be having a deficit of 10 billion, and your revenue of about total of about 16 trillion distributable, and earnings of about 9 trillion. It's like you said in your opening, these figures begin to confuse you if you're not very careful. And against, yes, the president listed a lot of successes that are accrued, and we should commend him for that. It's not difficult to manage any economy, through the headwinds that, he dived from a recession to COVID, from COVID to inflation, from inflation to, and all sorts. And our own inflation is not even caused, by what the primary cause of inflation as is caused, basically by our inability to be able to be food sufficient. So it's a dangerous, curve truly. So if we're going to be using oil as a basis of raising this money, and then we're talking about privatization, we're talking about proceeds from private, we're talking about, it's just going to be tough, truly. Oh,
really? And especially, looking at the issue of flooding. Look at Kogi State, for example, the impact it will have on our food security. How do you go around that?
No, you see, even Mr. President has highlighted some of the achievement in road construction, but unfortunately, most of the scarcity has been experienced today in this part of Nigeria is as a result of the flooding that is taking away our main roads. So that has shown that most of the investment that we are to put, we have to make appropriation to make sure that similar event doesn't occur in an attempt to allow supply bottlenecks to be wiped away. And not only that, if you take flooding in the agricultural-based communities, especially in Niger and Jigawa State, you realize, and even Taraba, for instance, you realize 20 hectares is gone. Well produced, well procured, well planted, but flooding is taken away. And I have said it severally that we have to watch the agricultural style that we are going to use. Those that are producing wheat in Eastern Asia are taking advantage of the cold season, and they are producing. So we have irrigated lands, and a presentation was made to the president that we are not making use of up to 10% of our irrigated land. So there is need for our agricultural policy to shift to irrigation so that we can have enough when other economies are sleeping.
All right, now let's take a break. Now we'll be back to talk some more. Stay with us.
We expect total fiscal operations of the federal government to result in a deficit of 10.8 trillion naira, considering the need to continue to tackle the existential security challenges facing the country. We plan to finance the deficit mainly by new borrowings totaling 8.80 trillion naira, 206.18 billion naira from privatization proceeds, and 1.77 trillion naira drawdowns on bilateral, multilateral loans secured for specific development projects.
Thanks for staying on. My guests are still with me, and we are discussing the 2023 appropriation bill. Before we went on the break, we were talking about the determining factors of the project, and of course the effect of flooding on food security. Now, Dr. Kengu, let me come to you. Now, let's take a step further back and ask this question. Where will all this money be coming from, considering the concerns already being raised by the World Bank and the IMF?
Well, as long as you have oil, you would get people to lend you money. So that wouldn't be the problem. And remember that we're still within, the safe range, as it were, in parentheses. Okay, vis-a-vis GDP to our debt profile. In fact, I think from how they have even classified the Nigerian economy, we can do up to 50%. Okay. However, the argument is not about the size of your economy. The argument is about managing your debt. Okay, because it's against the management of debt that you can now begin to now make that debt, usable, or it becomes toxic. My brother Isaiah had talked about flood. One of the best resources to use in producing rice is flood. Okay, go and look it up.
Okay.
And one of the best ways to be able to also manage your water resources is also flood. All right, remembering that flood can actually become, if you build spillways, okay, that can take your flood into containment areas, it can become a very major resource for you because it is water. Now, when we're talking about this flood, remember we're talking about water, and water is life.
Yes.
Okay, so I was having a conversation with somebody because I do a lot of road run, and if you've been on that Ajokuta axis, it's so easy for government to have known that there's never been a time Ajokuta doesn't, the Lokoja axis does not flood. Imagine a situation where, from that point where they sell bushmeat, where you have those hills, you made a detour. You created maybe 100 kilometers or 80 kilometers of road that cut off Ajokuta or cut off Lokoja completely. That is how a forward and innovative, people think. We should be able to think proactively, because these floods don't just come. Okay, by now we should have been able to move people to higher planes. And look at my brother again, Ishai, talking about us losing our agricultural lands. I mean, this is not the first time it's happening. Those lands have been flooded over and over again, and they keep getting flooded. Now, why can't we now introduce technology? What is our STIs doing? Okay, Central Bank has introduced this ROT 200 program that is supposed to be promoting our non-oil exports, okay, to raise 200 billion in the next 5 years. Is it doable? Yes. But we must begin to think more innovatively. Okay, bright ideas. You asked a very direct question, and I'm going to give you a direct answer. Where is this money going to come from? It's going to come from oil credits, not oil sales. So we're going to be needing to mortgage a lot more of our oil. It's going to be coming from what the president called privatization of our assets. So we'll be needing to mortgage more of our national assets. It's going to come from internal revenue sources, meaning that people are going to be taxed more. Okay, so it's just not going to be sugarcane chopping. And they say don't hit the man because he was eating sugarcane. We're already all tightened up.
Yes.
Okay, food inflation is at dizzying. I mean, when you have food inflation at over 22% in the rural areas, that is a disaster. Okay, so, but again, optimism is the way to go. The president has presented what I think is a very optimistic, but I don't know how realistic, because there's one thing to be optimistic, and there's another thing to be able to now follow some realistic pathway that you can measure the outputs of what can happen. And that is where your question becomes a catch-22 question. If I say yes, I say no. Well, let me answer the Nigerian way. God will solve all our problems.
Okay, Sha'u, now, who and what do you see as the drivers of this budget?
Mr. President has highlighted government-owned enterprises. They are going to be they will be taxed more, including the NTA. Probably we have even to commend Mr. President by appointing Abdulhamid Dembos, who is also expert in marketing. So I expect NTA to generate more to help out in this budget. Not only that, there is also the need for most of those who are not in the habit of pronouncing their profit before tax, profit after tax. That is where we are getting it wrong. Many businesses are growing. Many businesses are enjoying the facility. In fact, most of the oil companies that are operating, they should be paying taxes, because if, based on what Mr. President has highlighted, that by 2023, there will be technical withdrawal of subsidy. If subsidy is going to be withdrawn, we are expecting the same oil sector to have some money left behind so that it can be used in the same appropriation, so that most of the critical infrastructures highlighted by Mr. President can be attended to, including the road. He has highlighted the refurbishment of airports, seaport, is very good. He has also highlighted the rail transport. So these are sectors that can contribute to more if they are well managed and planned. Remember, today, more than thousands of trucks are now looking headway to come to the north, and many also are looking headway to the south, and that is a breakdown of businesses. So, and a lot of losses are being recorded. So the Bureau of Statistics, Mr. President has not highlighted some of the role of Bureau of Statistics. He has highlighted more on the contribution of the finance budget best, and he has even spoke about the introduction of organic laws into our budget. So these are some of the things that I think we that are partners in progress, the government enterprises should do more. Businesses that are not paying taxes should be paying taxes. These are ways in which internally generated revenue can help Mr. President and can help the appropriation to actualize.
All right. Okay, now, Doctor, we have had in the past to revisit the budget like it was done with COVID. And now, do you see predictions like growth and oil and currency changing?
Growth comes with production. Okay, so if you're not productive, you can't grow, no matter what it is you do. All right, and productivity and productiveness comes with a lot of demands. Okay, which is where government now says, okay, let us be able to support with the, necessary, critical, and social infrastructure. Now, we have talked about, Isha talked about why we have fuel queues. It's because trucks are stuck carrying fuel, up now. But he's not also mentioned that trucks carrying food.
Yes.
So there's also possible that you're going to be increasing the hunger, in the southern part, and then the prices of goods and services are going to be skyrocketing. And a lot of those goods are perishable. Okay, so people are going to be, and you don't have any insurance system that can be able to create this. And it wasn't as if this wasn't foretold. So what's important for us now is that, yes, currency, how do we, somebody says, the Naira appreciated, I think it was you, and I cringed. Why would we be talking about the Naira appreciating by 2% against the dollar, and we're still at 700? We should be talking about the Naira returning against the dollar to 197 and then dipping. Okay, so any appreciation you have, okay, that is not in the neighborhood of, and again, each time you talk about Lydia, double digits. If it is not in the positive, it is bad news.
Okay. All right, now, let's say your final words as a roundup.
Professor has rightly pointed, most of the parameters used in projecting any estimate has to do with macroeconomic variables. Inflation is there, exchange rate is also there, and unemployment rate is not normally used because the essence of all this is to create new jobs. When you create new jobs, you create new income. When you create new income, you create new profit to the government. So I think, Mr. President, behind any successful leader, there is commitment. The president must be more committed to internally generated revenue, more committed to fighting corruption, and more committed to good political transition.
All right, thank you very much. That's all we can take on this episode of Nigeria Today. But before we go, I want to appreciate our guests, Dr. Emeka Okengu, senior economist and former United Nations consultant. We appreciate your line of thoughts. And a senior citizen. Thank you.
Thank you.
And also, I want to appreciate Yusha'u Aliu, economist par excellence. Thanks for finding time out.
Thank you very much.
With us all the time.
Thank you very much.
And our viewer back home, thank you for keeping a date with us always. Remember, the program airs weekdays at 7:30 p.m. You can watch this and other episodes at www.youtube.com/NTNU24hub. I am Lydia Odidiochi, wishing you a wonderful weekend. Goodbye.